Okay, welcome back to Virtual Worm Blender tutorial number 6. We left off in the last tutorial on picking out and selecting a few different cells from the individual cells list and then showing their names over here. I just want to clear this out, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit and do some panning, and I just want to kind of remove these names so that we can kind of start with a fresh scene again. The way I'm going to do that is press A to select all, and then I'm going to click on this hide cell name button and then press A again to deselect everything. So now we're kind of back to a fresh start with everything kind of cleared away. Now I want to just go through the basic function of selecting cells based on their groupings. So there's a couple ways we can do this. One that's a little bit more tedious and one that's easier. I'll do the tedious one, which is the more obvious one first. So for example, let's say right here we have a group FAR motor neurons. What this stands for is pharyngeal motor neurons. And so actually it turns out there's only one pharyngeal motor neuron. So we can select that. Let's choose a different group. It's a little bit more interesting. All right, here we go. So we have pharyngeal interneurons. And so we have these cells I1L, I1R, I2L, I2R, I3, I4, I5, and I6. Now we can left click on the name or on this little XYZ axis kind of logo here. Again, if you select individually, you'll just select one at a time. But if you hold Shift, you can select several. What these two panels allow us to do is actually to highlight by selecting over here to the left of the arrow, left of this little expand collapse arrow, and it highlights these cells. And now that doesn't actually select them. What we need to do is actually right click on this 3D arrow symbol and then select the select option. And now all of these are selected and we can see them right here. Now instead of hitting Shift B to zoom into the head or selecting the window that we want to see, I'm going to introduce you to the center option. If we press the center button, this will actually center our view around the objects that we've just selected. So now we have all of the pharyngeal interneurons right here. And so let's just zoom in now that we've centered on those objects. We can see them here. Now, of course, just like everything else, they're transparent and they're kind of blending in. One way to really make these things stand out is to hit the opaque button. And what this will do is it will actually make these cells really stand out amidst everything else. In a little while I'll show you how to adjust the colors too, so that maybe we can turn everything else off in terms of color except for these cells and make these things really stand out. If you're interested in what the cells names are, while we still have these cells selected, we can click on Show Cell Name. And we see we have I1L here, I2L here, I3 up here, and so on, I5 back here. I'm going to hit A to deselect all, and I'm just going to orbit around a little bit just to demonstrate that we can take a look at all of these cells as a group. Okay, and so I showed you that we can actually select groups of cells using this panel here. I'll show you a slightly less intuitive but kind of more user-friendly way to actually select these things. So let's say we want to just actually manipulate these cells, or we want to make them transparent again, and we don't have to select each one individually or come over here. One thing we can do, as I showed you before, is we can press Alt and then right-click, and we see we get a drop-down of all these different cells. I'm going to choose one of those cells right here. So we selected IL2R. I'm going to press Shift-G, select Objects in Same Group, and then I'm going to, oh, sorry, this is the wrong one. Let's see. We want to choose I2L. And then we want to press Shift-G, Objects in Same Group, for FAR interneurons. And now we've selected all of them. And then we can hide the cell and press Transparent to pop these back into transparency. So selecting an object and hitting Shift-G allows us the option to select all the other objects in the group. I'll go into a little bit more detail about this in the next tutorial.